Welcome back to MMA Al Dente. I am the guy who picked Fabricio Verdum to defeat Stipe Miocic. And I'm here to talk about Julio Arce versus Herbert Burns. My pick for this fight is Julio Arce wins in round 2 or 3. And my only bet so far is on Herbert Burns at plus 410 because I just think he's such a dangerous fighter that I had to bet on that. And the line has since come down, but it's just a small little bet. Really, the only bets that I'm going to look to play from here on out will be props. Herbert Burns by submission and round one as well. And Julio Arce winning down the stretch in rounds 2 or 3, which will be a bet against the cardio of Herbert Burns, which is also what the pick is based on. I think Herbert Burns, his cardio is his biggest weakness. And a lot of that could be caused by him being such a first round monster. It actually wouldn't surprise me if he tried to take his foot off the gas and try to save some of his gas here, prepare for a longer fight. But I also don't think it would be wise. I don't know what kind of future he thinks he has in MMA, but he's 36 now. I think he's past it. I don't think there's going to be title fights in his future. I think he's a guy who's better off putting his foot on the gas and going for it early in round one because that's when he can make the most of his jiu-jitsu advantage, which is something he should have in just about every matchup, certainly this one. He's a very dangerous submission artist, true beast. If he gets on top of you, you're in trouble. He's got submissions every which way, and I think Julio Arce, despite maybe being an underrated submission artist, I don't think he's going to have much to offer a fresh Herbert Burns on the ground. On the feet, though, Herbert Burns is limited, certainly limited. His striking is just a means to an end. He does have one knockout, and it is a big one over Nate Landwehr, who's also fighting on this card. But he hit the button there. It was the right spot. I think on the feet, he'd be getting chewed up by Julio Arce. Chewed up by him, and I think pieced up on the outside, not chewed up on the inside in the clinch, where he landed that knee over Landwehr. I think Julio Arce is the much cleaner striker, much overall cleaner fighter, and I think I trust his cardio way more. He's gotten plenty of finish. Most of his finishes, I feel like, are down the stretch. Julio Arce, rounds 2 and 3. But here, really, it's all about Herbert Burns and him, being 36, having a long, long layoff, 3 years or whatever it is, coming off of 2 disaster losses, tearing a ligament in his knee. He's just got so much going against him where I think now, with his back against the wall, he's got almost no choice but to be a round one or bust fighter. So, uh, Julio Arce is the pick. I think he's going to have to get by the danger of Herbert Burns in round one. I think he does so. And then, even though Herbert Burns has probably promised himself he's not going to get finished, and I've heard an interview with him. I know he's embarrassed by the way that last fight was perceived, his Bill Algeo loss. And I'm sure the Daniel Pinedo loss wasn't too much different, especially those back to back. It was a bad look. But I think he's going to lose in a similar fashion here. Julio Arce is a much more comfortable, composed fighter, and I don't think Herbert Burns is going to have much to offer him in the second half of this fight. Herbert Burns has lost twice before those 2 losses, and they were both by decision to good fighters, too. I saw the one he had against Movid Habulayev, and wrestling was the story of that fight, but it looked like I thought Herbert Burns was starting to wilt in round 2 in that fight, getting pieced up and kind of hoping he'd be ripped to the mat and then he'd be able to play jiu-jitsu at least. And maybe he'd get his wish and get that type of fight where things get slowed down by his opponent. And I know he's safe, if nothing else, on the ground, but I think the danger is gone after round one. And I think Julio Arce, he gets by round one and he's going to be in control of this fight. So Julio Arce is the pick. Herbert Burns, as of now, is the only bet. And I'll wait to see the props, which will go both ways. But certainly I'll be betting on my pick, which is Julio Arce getting a finish down the stretch. I guess I'd say round 3 for Julio Arce, even though the the last two for Herbert Burns have come in round 2. So Julio Arce is the pick, and the bets are all over the place. Like, share, subscribe, all that horse shit. Check out my other videos.